What do you remember from 84 itself?
There was a huge rally, and you just saw that was a commotion. People were crying. There was big gatherings at the Gurdwara. There was burning of the Indian flag, effigies of Indira Gandhi. To put that in context, what we're talking about, what happened, is we've just seen a new pope be elected this week. This is the equivalent of the Italian army sending its full military force to send the tanks into St. Peter's Basilica and bomb the Basilica for 4 days and do that on Easter. And all those pilgrims have them trapped inside. That's what the Indian government did in June 84 to the Sikh.
Just give me a bit of background into the event. What sort of activities going on? What are you doing on the day to engage and educate and ultimately remember? It's a remembrance. What is the day planned and what are you trying to do on the day?
It is the largest event that marks 1984 globally. Even in Punjab, there's a big gathering at Akal Takht, but you don't get the numbers that come to the London March. And even the Singhs in Punjab, the Singhs in Canada, America, Australia, Europe, they all look to London because this has been the flagship remembrance event.
Hi guys, new interview / podcast, something a bit different. It's Maninder from Dharam Seva. Today, I'm hitting a subject which many will be very interested in or maybe not explored. Others that would want to know more. A topic which is really relevant. Topic I'm talking about is a major event, I would say, in the UK Sikh calendar. Last year, there was over 20,000 people at this event. 20,000. A lot of people. An event which goes from Wellington Arch and finishes in Trafalgar Square. An event that is held every year. I'm not sure how many years, and we'll get into that once I go into the interview. But again, this year it's held on the June the 1st. It's a rally, one that we really look at remembrance. It's a remembrance march rally that then goes into a Sikh element, a huge Sikh element, a huge part of our history. We look at some real historic events and something that's made a huge impact over the last 40 odd years, but more that we want to delve into. So to go into that further, I'm really honored to have with me someone I class as a big brother, someone who I've known for many, many years. And today I've got the privilege to speak to. So we've got Jazz from UK Sikh Federation. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Jazz, lovely to have you on.
Well, it's great to be here.
I've even been nicer that I've come to the East Midlands.
Exactly, there you go.
Take you long?
No, for me it's around the corner. And it's rare to be blessed with Dharam Seva Productions and being on one of your platforms. So yeah, it's a privilege.
No, it's good to have you on. Born and bred East Midlands, are you?
Derby, yeah. Born and bred in Derby. Lived around, travelled around, but Derby's home centre of the universe, as they say.
And that's your home?
Yeah.
So cracking straight in, I would say if many people who are from the Sikh organisations got a real understanding of the Sikh way in the UK, would have more than likely seen you somewhere. Someone who's very much behind the event on June the 1st. Yeah. Just give me a bit of background into the event and the remembrance rally that's going ahead.
So the event you talked about, it's the 1984 Remembrance March and Freedom Rally. And it's been happening in the UK uninterrupted since 1984. The first one happened in the summer of 1984, weeks after Operation Blue Star in Amritsar, in Punjab. And it's been ever present in London. The first one was in Hyde Park and it's evolved over those 40 years, marching through London, ending at Aldwych, was the Indian High Commission, and then moving it on to about 20 years ago, ending with a large rally at Trafalgar Square. And now this is the set program. So it's been happening even through COVID. So we had 3 years of COVID restrictions where you couldn't gather. We still held the symbolic march.
How did you do that?
So we had a symbolic march, Panj Pyare, And we had very controlled numbers.
Yeah.
And we had social distancing, but we did it. One of the events in 2017, there was a terror attack. So the London Borough Market, when they had the Manchester bombings on the Saturday night and the early hours of Sunday morning was a terror attack in London, we still held the rally. We changed it up.
On the day?
Yeah, on the day.
Oh, wow.
We adjusted it. We didn't do the march because to limit police requirement. And they were very appreciative. They said, look, please do your march. We're like, no, we recognize what's gone on. We still did the rally. So it's been, no matter what the circumstances, and we'll get onto stuff, we've had all sorts of obstacles, both domestic and foreign interference. Okay. We've had governments trying to stop the rally. But Guru Sahib's Kirpa, it's been happening for 40 years. And this year, on the 1st of June, it will be the 41st. And that's on Sunday, the 1st of June.
See, I've learned something new there. I didn't know the rally had gone on since 84.
Yeah.
Two things. I'm going to ask two different sort of questions here. One, look, we know in 1984, it's very well documented. I'm sure you'll go into it more. There was an atrocity. There was something that can only be looked at as a dark time in Sikh history. And people will have different thoughts based on whether you're in this region of the world, this region of the world, whether you've got this viewpoint. However you look at it, there was a involvement with different parties where a lot of Sikhs were affected. Where is your background, and how is it? Have you had family involved? What was Jazz Singh from an early age saying, I'm going to be part of this freedom rally, I'm going to be part of this remembrance, and I'm going to make sure every single year people are aware of the history of 1984?
So it's a really, really good question. And ultimately, I can say 1984, the events of June 1984, defined my life.
Wow.
Because before that, we weren't a Gursikh family. Okay. My dad didn't have his hair. We had, as kids,
he was uncut hair.
Uncut hair, used to drink, smoke, all of that stuff. Typical Punjabi family household.
So your dad was he come here? Was he born here or he come here?
No, he came here in the late 60s.
Late 60s, okay. Yeah. So he'd been here for a good amount of time before 84.
Yeah. And typical social life, working hard in foundries, and then the pub at the weekend.
Yeah.
And you'd crawl out of the pub on a Sunday evening after, and then work again in foundries on Monday. So that was our lifestyle. And I was about 6-7 years old in 84.
Yeah.
When June happened, I was 6 years old. And that attack affected me in that I, as a 6-year-old, used to walk to the Gurdwara, which was just around the corner from our house. And my bibi would go with me. And I then said, I don't want to cut my hair. And then after the attack, my dad and many Sikh families like him switched overnight. It was literally like a switch had been triggered with the Bachan of Sanjana Singh Ji Khalsa Pindrawale. It just woke a sleeping nation.
Okay.
And my dad took Amrit and my mum took Amrit overnight and joined the ISYF, the International Sikh Youth Federation, which was the organization was set up in the UK, and effectively started on that journey. For me, the events of 1984, even though I was so young, they're so, like I said, I would say they define me as an individual.
Yeah.
Because of what it actually represents. It's that.
What does it represent?
So it's about resistance against oppression. It's about freedom. It's about equality. And fundamentally, it's about truth. And they're the three words that are common through our rally is truth, justice, freedom.
Yeah.
Now, as you were talking about, whatever your political view, whatever your view of the events of 84, ultimately, if you search your own conscience, what you'll find is that was about truth and justice for the Sikh community and Punjab as a whole.
Yeah. And
it was defined the Dharm Yudh Morcha, which was the righteous morcha in terms of the righteous struggle.
Yeah.
So I connected to that and I saw the attack on the Akal Takht Sahib, Darbar Sahib. As many elders, but as a child, it just struck a chord with me that this was an attempt to annihilate Sikhi. And it wasn't the first time, and it won't be the last time, but it was our time.
Yes.
So just as we do our ardas and we hear about all the sayings and singania that gave their shahidiyan for all the sake in history, this was in our time. And those who responded did so according to Sikh principles. And I think that's something which we now try to reframe in modern lenses. And we can't apply that because Sikhi is immortal. It transcends all Western frameworks.
Yeah.
So you have to look at it through a Sikhi lens. So that event effectively reshaped my life. And since that date, even though while I was young, I grew up in Sikh activism. My dad was very prominent, very active. And we just followed through, started going to programs, started doing stalls at the Gurdwara, listening to Dharmak Tadi Vara, Kavishri, speaking and meeting many Gursikhs, both here from Punjab, who were involved in the movement. So I was blessed because of Dad's involvement that we had access to a lot of knowledge and information.
Was your family affected? I know they were aware they're in this country.
Yeah.
Many hundreds and thousands of miles out. I don't know the distance from here to Punjab. But was there anyone affected that you knew or your family knew on a very individual basis?
We knew people who were affected in terms of their houses were being targeted, Najwan were being picked up, not directly in June 84, but the events in the aftermath.
Okay, makes sense. And for you, it's really because you've struck something there. As a 7-year-old, let's be honest, when you're at that age, in a Punjabi household at that point, a lot of love, I presume. You're very close to your family. I know, like you said, your mother and father went into it and that inspired you. Yeah. So there's a lot of love. So you're in a very stable family, loving family. What do you remember from 84 itself? I
remember, obviously, the seeing the pictures of the Akal Takht, there was a huge rally. And you just saw that was a commotion. That people were crying. There was big gatherings at the Gurdwara. There was burning of the Indian flag, effigies of Indira Gandhi. And as a kid, you're trying to comprehend what had happened. And then you see the pictures of the Akal Takht and Darbar Sahib. And it's just, you can't understand what's going on. And to certainly to put that in context, what we're talking about, what happened, is we've just seen a new pope be elected this week. This is the equivalent of the Italian army sending its full military force of commandos, armed soldiers, tanks, helicopter gunships, navy divers, cutting off the Vatican completely, black out the Vatican, expel all the media, to send the tanks into St. Peter's Basilica and bomb the Basilica for 4 days and do that on Easter. And all those pilgrims have them trapped inside. That's what the Indian government did in June 84 to the Sikhs. And I think it's going to leave lasting scars. And to me, it was and it's affected many people in many different ways. For me, it's a flame. And that flame fuels me every day I wake up is, what can I do? We do very little compared to the shahidiyan that we're going to mark and we remember, but we do our bit, and it's the fuel that keeps driving you to do what you need to do to give your contribution. For other people, it was more traumatic, and it's regress them or they mark in different ways.
Loved ones involved.
Yeah, 100%. And you can't judge anybody else's trauma off the back of it. You can only see what it does for you.
And I think, bang on. What you've said there is that what we are trying to do is give an audience an education.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, a lot of people look at this and say, well, I wasn't part of that history, didn't affect me. What you've said there in those probably not too many words, little amount of words, it was so hard hitting. It's unthinkable. It's something when you put it in its bare, you almost think, whoa. And you almost have to take whilst you're saying that, I've had to take a deep breath in and think, how do I comprehend that?
I mean, you have to think about most people listening, and a lot of non-Sikhs would have visited Sri Harmandir Sahib, affectionately known as the Golden Temple in Amritsar. Yeah. I mean, over 100,000 people visit there a day. So that is the most visited site on the planet. These are official statistics. Yeah. So that's what we're talking about here. Probably one of the most spiritual places that any individual can experience. And when you walk down, I remember the first time I went to Darbar Sahib. It was in 1994. And I remember walking down, going through Guru Ram Das entrance, walking down the steps, because obviously you lower yourself when you go to most religious places or special places. You walk upstairs. Here, Guru Sahib has designed it that you go down in terms of you lower yourself.
Correct.
It's the house of God.
It was an analogy that was so beautiful.
Absolutely.
In the way it was done.
But when I walked those steps, and then you see the Parkarma, the causeway, the Sri Darbar Sahib, for me, the beauty and the spirituality, the one thing, the scene that played in my mind was, how the hell was this a war zone in 1984? Where did the tanks come from? How were there tanks around the whole Parkarma where people were walking, praying and bathing? And you walk up to the Sarovar and you see the fish and you people are bathing and you think this was full, this was red. The Sarovar was red with blood. And there were bodies being washed up in the Sarovar. And as you walk around and you see the Akal Takht Sahib and you see Shaheed Baba Deep Singh, and anybody who's been to Darbar Sahib will know as you walk around, that's where the tanks fell. And as they couldn't get past Baba Deep Singh's Shahidi Astan, and hence they started firing, and that's why the damage was to one side, because that's the angle.
See, again, something I've not known, but
the
power of what's the right word you use for someone like Baba Deep Singh, a warrior of warriors, someone who's a pillar, and even in that time, a pillar at that point is
it's
amazing.
The Shakti, the power that's there. There's no other explanation, and the Indian Army couldn't put this in their books. They couldn't explain why the tanks, the tracks just dipped. And then you had the amazing Qurbani of Gyani Moor Singh's family, of his daughters, Bibi Satnam Kaur and Bibi Vaiguru Kaur, who then grenaded the tanks. And they sacrificed themselves to stop further tanks coming. But they couldn't progress from there. But these are the scenes when you walk round Darbar Sahib. And it's unfortunate that successive SGPC regimes have effectively eroded all the signs of Operation Blue Star now. But you still can find them. And if you walk around and you see what was done, the damage, and you put yourself there, it's something that you can't get away from. You can't separate yourself. And that's, then you look at the injustice around it, which is actually how it was demonized, how the propaganda was in full force for 40 years, that we had to establish the truth. And then we're working for justice. And ultimately, this whole struggle was for freedom. And that's why those three words are so powerful. But seeing them there, and when you're in Darbar Sahib and you put them in that context, it gives you a whole different experience.
See, what you've said in 15 minutes has been eye-opening for me. I'm not going to sit here and say that I know this. What you've already provided me with in 15 minutes, I'm sort of sitting back and thinking, wow. Going on to the rally, you've given information here for someone who now ears have plucked up and they're thinking, okay, Jazz has just said something here that I wasn't aware of, or now I'm resonating with, because I'm thinking, well, there's an education here that I want to be aware of, or I want to do more. On that particular what sort of awareness do you put out there? What sort of activities going on? What are you doing on the day to engage and educate and ultimately remember? It's a remembrance.
Yeah.
What is the day planned, and what are you trying to do on the day?
So it's the biggest gathering of Sikhs in the UK. It is the largest event that marks 1984 globally. Globally. Even in Punjab, there's a big gathering at Akal Takht, but you don't get the numbers that come to the London March. And even the Singhs in Punjab, the Singhs in Canada, America, Australia, Europe, they all look to London, because this has been the flagship remembrance event. And the fact that it's been going for 40 years now shows that determination of our elders who started this when it was so raw for them. I mean, there were hundreds of thousands who attended. I think 150,000 attended the first rally. 100 in 1984.
Wow.
And the community couldn't have been more than 300,000-400,000. So imagine half the Sikh population
come
in Hyde
together
Park.
On that.
That's how deep this cut. And many of them there were, I've met people now when they come to the rally who were in Darbar Sahib in those days. many who have been affected by the genocide of November, Operation Woodwards, and we'll talk about. But those events, they affect people and they come because it always starts with the gathering. Historically, it was at Hyde Park. Now we at Wellington Arch, which is just across the road.
Yeah.
And the Panch Pyare it's all under the guidance of the Panch Pyare. And there's a political start. There are a lot of pracharaks. So because it's so large event, all the Sikh organizations attend, support, and are part of it. This isn't just one event. It is organized by every Sikh organization. We all share, all contribute. And it is a Sanja program, a pure sign of unity. And then we march through London as a protest. That this is about not only remembrance, but like I said, like truth and justice.
Yeah.
And it has a greater significance for UK Sikhs because in 2014, we all realized the extent and level of involvement of the British government. And we'll touch on that. And then we walk through London and then we have a large rally in Trafalgar Square from about 2:00 till about 5.
In Trafalgar Square.
In Trafalgar Square. And at that rally, there'll be a lot of guest speakers who have either eyewitnesses or been involved in campaigns and events after 84, and also those activists who are active now. I mean, just to share, Jaggi Jal, who we all know, Jagdar Singh Jal, who's detained in Punjab, in India, in Tahar jail, he would attend these rallies regularly. Yeah. A coach from Scotland, Avtar Singh Khanda, who was suspiciously killed 2 years ago. He spoke at this rally and was regular. So this is a hub of activity. It brings Sangat together. And there's 3 key objectives about the rally.
Yeah.
And this is important for people to understand because it isn't just going to London, having a march, and then having a rally and then coming home.
And that's why I asked the question because I know there's people I know who will go for the day.
Yeah.
And I haven't been in the recent years, I'll be open, and I've asked people, I've said, oh, what happened on the day? And they say, it was brilliant. All the seats come together and you met loads of people and people were on stage and I mingled with people. We spoke about history. And no way are they playing down the event of the day. But at the same time is, what are they going to take away from that day? Yeah. What as an organisation that have run this for now, I know you may not have run it yourself for 41 years, but it's been running for 41 years. What is it that you're looking for those who are uneducated or unaware? What are those 3 points that you want them to take away?
So the first thing we take away is the event itself. It's still happening for 41 years. That is an achievement in itself.
Oh, 100%.
Because these things aren't automatic. And when you're organizing an event of that scale against all obstacles, political, so the government of our country, the police authorities of our country, the civil service, and foreign governments using all of their powers are trying to disrupt or stop it, that gives you a whole different context of how much it takes to shut down London for a day.
Yeah.
This isn't a Nagar Kirtan that we're doing in our local towns, right? This is a political protest through central London. So that to be successively happening is a huge achievement because we haven't forgotten. The first primary objective is we go individually and collectively as Sangat. So in Sikhi, Sangat is paramount.
Yes.
You can sit at home and you can do an ardas, you can remember, but when you stand in Sangat, it's a whole different dimension. So the first bit is that we individually and collectively, we stand together and we pay homage to all the shaheeds and the martyrs who gave their lives to defend the Sikh faith. Because in June 1984, there was a huge tragedy, destruction of Akal Takht Sahib. Thousands of innocent pilgrims were killed, but there was a handful of saint soldiers who defended the faith against the might of the Indian army, and they died defending it. So those shaheeds, we go to remember them because our history is littered with shaheediyan. Our gurus themselves, the 5th Guru, Guru Arjan Dev Ji, started the Shahidi lineage for us. So Shahidi and martyrdom is very, very high in Sikhi.
Yes.
So we go there to pay homage to them and we show the world that we are remembering our Shaheeds. And that's the minimum we can do. Not everyone can walk the path of a Shaheed. It's a privilege.
100%.
So when we remember them, that is paying our respects.
Correct.
To their contributions. The second objective is to show the Indian state, whichever successive governments has been over the last 41 years, that we haven't forgotten. No matter what you do, no matter how you change politics and dynamics and language, ultimately the events of 1984 have left a scar on the Indian government and the Indian state, which will not be removed. And that is something that they have tried and failed. If we mark 80 years of the war in Europe this year, the Holocaust, which was an absolute unbelievable tragedy and genocide from the Second World War, those events are remembered, not only remembered, are elevated each year. But we have these things of why should we forget? So we do it to show the perpetrators that justice is outstanding and ultimately the truth will always come out. Yeah. As a minority, it might take us a bit longer, but it will. And the final objective is for the next generations. So just as we've picked up the mantle from our elders who started this, we're doing it. While it's our seva, we will put our contribution in. But if we don't collectively share the message and share the pain and share the struggle with the next generation, then things like this will end. So this is a succession. So those who come, I was a young kid, 4 or 5 years old, and now I'm there on the stage. There'll be a young 6-year-old, 5-year-old at these rallies who will then be standing and organizing it in 20 years' time. So that's the essence of that event.
No, and I think you've picked up, I think it's beautiful as well. Remembrance of those affected, those who played their part. Yeah. But your history, you can never forget your history. And I think for future generations is very clear. For a non-Sikh who might want to come and learn, how do you build one in two ways? You're in a large scale, you're in London. There could be people who are very passionate, clearly. How do you keep it a peaceful event, but an event that is aligned, that others seeking in think, wow, I want to know more?
I mean, the event's always been peaceful because just in Sikhi, it's not about causing a ruckus or causing trouble or breaking the law. Our struggle and our issues are with the Indian government. And the community is very law abiding in that sense. And so that's never been an issue. What we have certainly focused on over the last 10 years, I'd say, is how do we get the awareness out largely in English.
Yeah.
And that's in written prachar. So a lot more flyers the organizations pull together and we hand them out. A lot of signposting. So where can people go for information? With the internet now, we have the power of our truth.
Yeah.
Our narrative. For years, for decades, we were fighting this fight through the lens of the oppressor.
Yeah.
It was their narrative, their facts, and we were the small voice that was overcrowded. Now with the internet and the work done by a lot of the Sikh activists in starting up Never Forget 84, saintsoldier.net, these websites that went out and documented what happened.
I was just going to ask that. Someone sitting here now who's listening and thinking, I want to know more. June the 1st, yeah. I'm sure they'll want to attend. You've given a real good viewpoint, but where could they go online to get more information?
Yeah, it's a really good point because all we want is people to question and go and find out. I'm not asking anyone to believe what I have to say.
Yeah,
I can quite easily stand and talk and explain and challenge anyone to a debate on 84. But I would much rather prefer somebody go and do their own research. Yep. But go and ask, go and look.
See it through their own lens.
Exactly. And then ask the questions. And there are huge websites now. You can go to 1984tribute.com. It's a huge resource center that you can go and understand what happened in 84, post 84, but also a lot of the bios of those freedom fighters and soldiers that were martyred through the Sikh struggle. There are a multitude. You can go on the Sikh Federation's website and you'll find a published report that we got here, Sacrificing Sikhs. And this was a report, and anyone listening, I'll encourage them to read this.
This is on the Sikh Fed.
It's on the Sikh
Federation.
Fed, yeah, so sikhfeduk.com. And it's a short report, but it's not my opinion or others in the Sikh Federation. This report was written by an investigative journalist, Phil Miller.
Who's Phil Miller?
And people remember Phil Miller. So Phil Miller was the one who discovered the 84 papers from the British government. where Margaret Thatcher had sent SAS soldiers to Darbar Sahib months before the attack happened. And this opened up this whole controversy of how the UK government was directly involved before, during, and after. And that policy of British appeasement of India for trade at the expense of civil liberties, human rights of British Sikhs has been exposed. And that policy, people think we're talking about what happened now with the Conservative government.
Yeah.
This was in 1984. And from 1982. And the Sacrifice in Sikhs report, what that starts to open up is government papers. So that report is written from cabinet meetings, letters between the Prime Minister of India, Indira Gandhi, Margaret Thatcher, Rajiv Gandhi, the Foreign Secretary, the Home Secretary, all government officials. It is their language, it's their papers. And what that will highlight, give everyone a view on actually how pre-planned the Operation Blue Star was. I know a lot of people think it was just to go and get Sant Jalal Singh Pindawale out of Darbar Sahib, and a group of Sikh militants had held it up. And some people have that view, but it's not the truth. And if we, even today, maintain that, then we're ignorant, because the truth is available. And the facts are the facts that the Indian government had a model built in the Dehradun desert in 1982 of Darbar Sahib complex.
Wow.
And the general appointed to oversee that attack, with General Sinha, refused, because he goes, I will not send the army to the sacred shrine. And they replaced him with General Brar, who just happened to be born into a Sikh family.
Yeah.
But what that shows is that the Indian intent to attack Sri Darbar Sahib was way before Sant Jalal Singh Ji was present there. Letters between Margaret Thatcher, the British government, and the Indian government start in about 1983 around trade, Westland helicopters deals. It's all well documented in there, around India asking for military assistance in how they could handle their Sikh issue, which was the rising Akali Dal and the Tarn Yudh Morcha. And a lot of details in there, but in essence, in short, India asked for military help. Britain acknowledged it and sent an SAS officer. An SAS officer spent 10 days in Sri Darbar Sahib doing a recce, and went back and provided his report of how you would conduct an operation on this site. And after that SAS involvement, all peace discussions and negotiations between the Akali Dal and the central government collapsed, because they knew troops were getting ready, they'd been given a briefing, and the military attack was going to happen. So it was already pre-planned.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing that again, people can go and look out for themselves and go find out. Then the events of the attack itself, we can get into. And again, there's a lot of facts and myths that people have been sort of confused by. And that's because of 40 years of disinformation.
Yeah. And you've said something there that's a particular word that I'm going to talk about, perception. Yeah. And there could be a perception that can be widely go one way or widely go the other way in everything. How do you keep balance?
I think that's on your own personality as well. I've always tried to look at it in a balanced approach, because that's how my mind works. And if you don't, then you never really understand where we're going, what's our strategy as a community. And if you just work with pure emotion and pain, it can fuel you so far, but it doesn't get you to your goals. So I think as Sikhs, it's a duty and incumbent on us to actually establish the truth. That's what Sikhi is all about. And in that, sometimes you have to explore options and different points of view. But ultimately, the truth is the truth. Now, if you seek the truth, it's not just a friendly truth. Sometimes it can be uncomfortable.
Yep.
And it will be suppressed. Information you find straight away often is misinformation or disinformation. You have to persevere to find truth. And those who do so will actually realize that the events of 1984 on one side was pure oppression and an attempt to completely, I would say, even eliminate a minority community. And that's been an intention of many since Sikhi established itself, whether it was the Mughals, whether it was the British, or whether it was the Hindu regime post-independence. So people should be under no illusions that Sikhs have been targeted. Our history is very clear on that. And on one side, you have then the resistance. And again, throughout years, we had Guru Nanak Dev Ji called the Emperor of India, called Babur. He called him a Jabbar to his face, which is effectively calling out the Prime Minister of any country. So we've gone through all of this where we've challenged the state and we've challenged the rulers of that time. And we've paid for it with our lives and our shahidiyan, but we've never faltered from principle. We've never compromised on principles. And those were the foundations of the resistance in 84. There were those political leaders in the Akali Dal that were prepared to compromise. And once you start to have compromised individuals in your position and in your camp, then that's where the fault lies. And they were approachable, they were compromised. But Santaji and the Gursikhs that believed in ultimate, that Guruji will guide them, they went all the way through. And they're the ones who we remember on that day, on the 1st of June. They're the ones who will remember. They're the ones who have become immortal. So that was the resistance was to, again, not to impose a fight or cause trouble or tensions. It was to resist when this was a disproportionate battle. And again, the stats are there. 150,000 military personnel were deployed to Amritsar. 12 units of commandos, highly trained commandos were there. Helicopter gunships were circling. You had Navy SEAL divers, the Indian equivalents, in the Sarovar. So all of the military might, you had tanks, Vijayanti tanks, which were made in Britain, and you have heavy artillery, howitzer guns that were positioned all around. And you had best part of 220 Gursikhs with World War II weapons, rifles, and a handful had automatic rifles and very minimal bullets. No food, no water because electricity was cut, food supplies were stopped, water was shut off to Darbar Sahib, and they fought for 10 days.
Wow. I think for any viewer now, you could be taken back here. I think it shows how special the day of 1st of June is. Remembrance, like we keep saying. Understand your history. And I think you've given a very, very clear account of what's happened, what we're doing going forward, and what, as Sikh Federation, as Jazz Singh, what's held deep in your heart. So there are more questions, but I just want to go slightly to one side because I think you've really expressed something so it's hard to put a certain word to it, but I would say so powerful and inspirational, but also very real from you. What I'd like to know is, and people might be saying that, say, you know what, I've seen Jazz Singh. I've heard the talks. I can see the passion in him. Who is Jazz Singh away from Sikh Federation?
So ultimately, we all have our things we do. We all have our careers. We all have our family life, and all of that's there. I'm a consultant by profession.
Yeah.
Many people ask me, am I a lawyer? Because we're involved in a lot of legal cases.
Yeah.
I mean, we've taken the government to court a few times about Sikh identity.
Passion. Yeah.
Exactly. And whether it's 84 cases we've been to court with, or whether it's Jaggi's case, whether it's Khanda's case. So we're always in the middle of some struggle.
Yeah.
So people just think, I'm not a lawyer, but I've been enough experience, been around enough.
And that's what I'm saying. They see Jazz Singh as a very, very commendable man, someone who stands for something, but you can almost see Jazz Singh as this, he's in this box. People must be sitting there and thinking, well, there's more. What more is there to Jazz Singh? Who is Jazz Singh?
Oh, we all have many sides, but I think it's, well, I mean, you know, look, we have a laugh.
Yeah,
so,
and this what I'm touching on is that because they can see one character.
Yeah.
They can see a passionate bloke.
See the serious side.
Yeah, they see a passionate bloke who stands for something, who's a good man, who thinks about his people. They, like you said, history that touched you when you were a 6-7-year-old. Yeah. But at the same time, people must be thinking, what does Jazz Singh like doing? What is he into sport? What's his food?
Yeah, I mean,
what's the narrative?
I played football for many years, and a lot of people who I know was through the Khalsa Football Federation tournaments.
Yeah.
So I played for Guru Arjan Dev Khalsa Derby.
You always played for Khalsa Derby?
Yeah, I always played for Khalsa. I did play for Smethwick for a couple of years, and then there's another Singh brothers in Derby towards the end. But for years, we played in a fairly decent level 4 English Premier football.
Step 4.
So yeah. We're the first Sikh team, certainly in the East Midlands, to play at the Central Midlands leagues. Now we have, I think, the Mahal and Sporting Khalsa and
GNG have done really well in Leicester
really well,
as well,
and also for Punjab United and Gravesend. So
Yeah.
it's coming on. So I grew up playing in these tournaments, playing in the league, and then through university and then through travel with work.
Where did you go to university?
So I studied in Derby.
Oh, you actually stayed in Derby?
Yeah. Because of just everything that was going on. Like I said, I was always in this line.
Yeah.
So people always ask me, people always say, where do you get the time from? And what do you do? I always think this is my job.
Yeah.
Because this is my passion. And everything else fits in around it, whether that's going to work, whether that's family and kids and all the rest of it, study. So I think it was just Guru Sahib's kirpa, really.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't see how my life sort of became what it was, given where we'd come from.
Yeah.
Very humble beginnings.
Yeah.
Me, my brothers, my sister, my dad. It was just like very simple life. But again, my dad just believed in pantale kors karo, do something for the community. Nothing else matters. Right? That's the priority.
And I love the outlook, but I'm going to touch and I'm going to prod you a little bit here. After June the 1st, you've been building up to it. It's been very busy. Jazz Singh gets to June the 2nd and thinks,
it's holiday time, bro.
What is the perfect holiday for Jazz Singh? How does Jazz Singh step away, take a break? Where does he lie and say,
You know what? I can't do these beach things.
Oh, right? You can't?
You know what? I get bored.
Oh, okay.
So I don't mind going,
but
I can't spend hours and hours on the pools. I get bored. I'm fascinated.
You can't just switch off there. You need to do something.
Yeah, I mean, you can relax and chill and all that. But I don't get how people just spend the whole day lying on a sun lounger. All right, I'm the one there with all the shuttering. I'll get the umbrellas on, and I don't need the tan for a start. But for me, I am fascinated with history.
Yeah.
So I love exploring ancient civilizations.
Yeah.
Roman Empire, Greeks, Turkish, the Ottoman Empire. So I love reading about that. Love reading about the scandals of other regimes and empires and religions.
Yeah.
And seeing the architecture. So I have this thing of seeing all the wonders of the world. So
what's the one that captured your eye and you thought, if I could, that was wow.
There's it would be the pyramids of Giza. They still fascinate me today. It's thinking, how the hell did they do that? I got builders building my house, can't put a screw straight, and they got all power tools, right? I'm looking, you can see the walls bent.
Because I know we're going off topic. When was the pyramids actually put together?
Was it 5,000, 4,000 years before Christ? So what, 4,000, 5,000 years ago?
You know, when you look at that and you think the architecture is quite mesmerising, isn't it? When you think about it like
that. And then you got the Colosseum in Rome, the Parthenon in Greece. The one I want to see is the Great Wall of China. That's on my to-do list. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I'm actually going out to Egypt, but I'm staying out the way. I'm staying in a bit of a resort. And, you think to yourself, should I take the trip or not take the trip? Because someone said to me, if you take it, you got to spend hours and you got to get up there and you got to take a flight or you got to take a 6-hour busing fit. But now you've said that, I'm sitting here thinking,
look at the other way. People say, where'd you go? You go Egypt. You see pyramids? No. What'd you go there for?
That's the flip side.
So yeah. And the temples and all that and the tombs. Yeah. So Egypt's it's amazing. So that's something what I love to explore, that side of things. So
history is almost wherever you go, you're fascinated about it. You like to see a different view of just the world as a whole. Then really,
I think you know what it is. Is
there an intrigue there? Would you say
there is intrigue because I'm always up for the underdog.
Yeah.
So even whichever country I go, I try and learn a bit about the minority communities. What can I resonate with them? Who's got a struggle?
Yeah.
Because everyone's got a struggle.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I was privileged to be taken to Belfast. Off the work we did, we had like an Irish law firm who took the case against the UK government on the 84 papers. I know we're going back, but we invited them to the rally. So people who were affected by the troubles in Northern Ireland, they came and spoke. And they invited me to the Field Festival, which is a big festival in Belfast. And I don't know if anyone's been to Belfast, but you can't walk around the streets in Belfast unless you're with someone.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I've never been out to Belfast.
You got Falls Road where they've got all the murals on the wall. And as soon as they saw Aseng walking around, then the people I with was all right. So and I spoke there, told them about 84, and everything I was saying, they resonated with them. So I have this affinity to marginalized, repressed communities and learning how they dealt with it. How are they coping? How are they reacted? What's their struggle? I mean, and the Irish story is fascinating, that given the labeling, the terrorism, the infiltration, the ethnic religious wars that were created, to now having a majority Sinn Féin government in Ireland, in Northern Ireland. And you had the Good Friday Agreement. So that's something that we should all look at. We always make reference to other minorities, whether it's the Jews or others, or but the Irish example is one that I'd say relates the closest to our.
I find it quite fascinating. Then this side of jazz thing as well, the history side. And all. Yeah. One thing I'm going to pluck on. I know we've spoken about a major event in Sikh history. An event that's always I found interesting for me is because we're born in this country. You understand a lot about World War I, World War II. You then, being from a Sikh background, you're always aware of the amount of people of our faith, from our culture, from our area of our ancestry. There's a lot spoken about the amount of people involved. One place that, I don't know where you've been, but I've always, bucket list you might call it, is in Belgium. Is it Ypres?
Ypres, Menin Gate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you been there?
I've been there a few times, yeah.
If people are watching, then there might be, because they're taking a lot of information on, but there's one area that I found you've not been to. What does that, what is there? What?
So I think it's a really interesting point that you talk about. And if we put that in context, is in the First World War, 1914, the world goes to war.
Yeah.
And India is a British colony.
Yeah.
And Winston Churchill, the British Prime Minister at the time, call on Indian soldiers.
Yeah.
And they answer the call. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers come in their short sleeve shirts, and they land in Ypres, Belgium, in France, and other areas.
What month of the year, if you don't mind?
In the winter.
Oh, that's what I was just going to get on to.
They're there for a prolonged period of time. The war goes on for about 4 or 5 years. So they're there.
Never seen that climate before.
Never seen the climate. They're not armed with anything. But the bravery they showed is signified on the walls of Menin Gate. So when you get to Belgium, there's a huge memorial called Menin Gate.
Is that what it's called? Menin Gate?
Menin Gate.
Yeah.
And it's a huge memorial, and it's where the battlefields were. And in Ypres. And there's a huge bloody battle, one of the bloodiest. And when you go through, there's engraved on the walls are the names of the Sikh regiments.
Oh, wow.
And when you look at them, and I took a picture with them all, and it's Seng, other names, Kumar, Singh, just regiments. And don't forget, we are less than 1% of the population of India. And then there's a place, an unnamed grave, and there's a khanda inscribed on it, and there's gravestones there because they didn't know. They didn't know where to send them, and they were buried there. And then fast forward. So not only did British Sikhs come here and fight, they won medals of bravery and gallantry. 4 years later, to say thanks for that, we have the massacre of 1919 in Jallianwala Bagh by the British Army. And so 4 years after saving Britain and the Allies in Europe, the British Army opened fire on hundreds of thousands of Sikhs at Amritsar in Jallianwala Bagh, and the British Army conducted that genocide and massacre. Then you go to the Second World War, 1940. That kicks off. Again, over 1 million soldiers come from subcontinent. A million soldiers. And of those in both world wars, 93,000 Sikh soldiers died and 103,000 were injured.
Staggering numbers.
12 won the Victoria Cross, if my numbers are correct, which is the highest number of any.
Is that the highest award you can receive from
you can get? Yeah, it's the Victoria Cross. And now we have, and then to say thanks to that, 2 years later, they split Punjab and the Sikh homeland in two and caused the biggest displacement massacre of Punjabis in partition. So that's the duality of the British contribution and the Sikh contribution, that no matter what the oppression, we still stood for what was right. We still stood to fight evil, even though evil was put upon us by the people we were helping. What's changed?
One thing that stands for me is we went back to our Guru's time.
Yeah.
You spoke about Shirme Pasha.
Yeah.
We know what Norme Pasha done. And you talk about sacrifice, you talk about stand, you talk about power.
Yeah.
You then go through to the World War. We've touched on Belgium. We've touched on the areas that you spoke about. You then talk about 84, and you talk about the modern day of remembrance, of looking at our history, being proud of our people, being proud of our history, but acknowledging our history. And like you said, the key word of remembrance, and forever pushing what our people and our struggle, but our fight. The enshrinement for me of that spirit is phenomenal.
Mm.
It's absolutely phenomenal. And I think it's acknowledged at the same time. I'm aware that, I'm going touching back to Belgium a little bit, but people say today, you go there and the people of those areas see you with your Bagonya Dari.
They'll grab you, right? They come up to you, they make a point of coming to say thank you to you as a Sikh descendant.
Wow. And that must give you a feeling inside that you can't.
We always say it, that the star we have on our head is a crown by Dashmesh Pita. And that is evident everywhere you go. That we have this identity, we have this identity, and we have the crown we have, and wherever we go, there is a recognition. But that hasn't come without a price.
Correct.
The price for us to stand here without the star and feel proud and feel privileged when people recognize us and say thanks and say, you Sikhs are great people, that only has come because of the blood of those shaheeds that we're remembering. Whether it's in June 84, whether it was in the world wars, whether it was through partition, whether it's through Jallianwala Bagh, whether it was through the Mughal Empire, the Badda Kalukara, the Shota Kalukara, the Shahbzade, wherever it was through history, whether it's Naume Pasha, whether it's Panjme Pasha, that blood has been spilled, which has paid the price for us to stand here and our Sardari. And I think all we have to do is acknowledge that. And if we're not even prepared to do that, then we should really ask the questions of what kind of Sikhs are we? What kind of Sikhi are we portraying? And more importantly, what kind of Sikhi are we passing on to the next generation? Because all we are custodians. And we have this issue of people in this generation want to have these conversations around Sikhi needs to change and it needs to adapt and we need to be liberalized. But ultimately, all we are living at this point in time. Sikhi was before us and it will be after us.
Correct.
It's not our place to be changing what Guru Sahib, Akal Purkh has ordained.
100%. Before we finish, firstly, I'd like to thank you. I think this, for me, has been eye-opening. It's been insightful. It's given an angle of real interest and a hunger to know more. And that's just me being open and honest. And I'm sure there may be people there are people sat here who might be thinking, wow, I'd love to know more. I'd like to see this more. We've signposted, which is brilliant. June the 1st, there is a Who's Remembrance, like we said, starts at Wellington Arch and goes through to Trafalgar Square. What is a key takeaway from Jazz Singh sitting here in front of me today?
I think first and foremost is everyone, please do some research. We've seen the height of misinformation, disinformation in our lifetimes, in our generation, through the farmers' protest. And even in recent times. So apply that to 84. Learn about it. Don't shy away from it. Go and discover what happened. Explore it. Your truth is what matters, first and foremost. Attending the rally is something that's part of Sikhi. That's what we have these gatherings. That's what the sarbat khalsa historically was about, is Guru Sahibs instilled these panthakakats, which was a gathering of Sikhs who would come together at specific times to have discourse, to meet each other, build that friendship, that alliance, that pyar. Because when the struggle comes, you struggle, then you fight with your brothers. We are not an isolated individual dharm. It's a way of life. We're a sangat, we're a community. So coming to the rally joins everyone together, and we join in remembering our shaheeds, and not only the shaheeds, but the huge sacrifice that they did, because that's a message for us all to how do we defend against the challenges we face today. Doesn't matter what town you're in, there are coaches coming from every town and city in the UK. So all I'd say is contact your local Gurdwara.
Yeah.
There will be coaches laid on. Get your name down, get you on a coach, come with the Sangat, or make your own way to London. We all go to London for football.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we go to the FA Cup final, right?
To go Wembley, yeah.
Isn't it? So we all go to London for work.
Yeah.
You don't think twice.
Yeah.
So why would we think twice for our one day in a year that we remember this event? So all make the effort. Transport's laid on. You can all get to London. And ultimately, the big takeaway I'd say is, when we look through our history, we look through it with pride of the Qurbaniya, whether it's the shortest Sahibzade or Baba Deep Singh, as you said, from the ages of 6 to the ages of 86. We look at Bhagat Singh, the revolutionary who freed India.
Yes.
We talk about Udham Singh. We talk about Kartar Singh Sarabha with pride. India talks about them with pride because they're revolutionaries.
Yes.
That's how we will look at these shaheeds, whether it's Sant Janal Singh Pindrawale, Bhai Amrik Singh, General Shabir Singh, and others. They will be the freedom fighters in our seat.